Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a fully spoilerly look at Transformers EarthSpark Season 1, Episode 11. Or possibly Episode 12. It really depends on how you count the pilot episodes and the half-season finale. Anyway, when you're watching them on your Paramount Plus presentation and it doesn't matter, it generally counts seasons 1, 2, and 9 and 10 as each one episode. But on the Amazon account without Paramount Plus, where you have to pay for each individual episode, they're counted as separate episodes. And IMDb counts them both differently. So, yeah, this is the episode called Outtakes. There will be spoilers, so in order to give you time to click away, I will tell you to go check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of my book, telling short stories of absurd human behavior, as witnessed by the aliens who have to live with us. Humans are weird. Let's work it out. Monty Python meets Star Trek in the short story collection of human absurdity. Now, spoilers, you have been warned. Megatron is most definitely up to something. This episode established that conclusively. We now have an established timeline for Megatron's turn to the light side, Dorothy's leg loss, and this mysterious Battle of the Bay we've heard referenced. The Malto family farm has a story to tell, if only those bunker walls could speak. But something suspicious confirmed from my speculation in the previous episode. Alita 1 is actually far more chill with Megatron than I expected, perhaps even sympathetic to him in interesting ways. And absolutely none of this critical plot-forwarding, world-establishing information was in any way the main point of the episode. Instead, we get to focus on Jawbreaker, the short, stocky Terran with the giant hands, trying to figure out the perfect alt mode, in the process building up and fleshing out his character. Now, Jawbreaker, he's built like a linebacker. He's shorter than both Hashtag and Nightshade, and wider than both. Jawbreaker, he's a very thoughtful, analytical mech. He doesn't want to do anything until he understands the situation completely. Another thing is, Jawbreaker has some kind of issues understanding personal space. We've seen him touch and physically interact with the other members of his families in ways they don't always like. He was literally groping and spinning Bumblebee's wheels, something that made Bumblebee uncomfortable, and something that we haven't seen any of the other Terrans do. So Jawbreaker, he's big, he's strong, and he does not have the inherent sense of physical propriety that the rest of his siblings seems to have, which is a real dynamic that you see in kids in real life, and this can cause real problems for them. So we're looking at a character flaw or a challenge he has to face. Jawbreaker can also, he lacks the social and verbal awareness that tells him what questions he shouldn't ask. And of all the siblings, he seems to be the one most likely that asks questions with purely innocent intentions that can actually hurt people's feelings. But if Jawbreaker catches on to this, he feels terrible about about the distress that he's caused them. It's really a very interesting dynamic. Speaking psychologically, that would be someone with high conscientiousness and low politeness. And to kind of top all this off, Jawbreaker lacks the social confidence when attempting to make requests for himself, but is fully capable of decisive action the moment he sees a clear duty. Again, we go back to that low levels of politeness, but high levels of conscientiousness. When you add all this up, I get the honest impression that I am watching a young Optimus Primal from Beast Wars beginning to go through his Season 1 arc. You know, maybe that impression is more formed by the giant hands and long arms, but I think Jawbreaker is setting up to be quite the hero character in the future. He has the makings of a good leader once he can get some experience and confidence. Developing these aspects of Jawbreaker's character is the whole thrust of the episode, just as the last episode was about exploring who Hashtag is. Now, let's dig into the mysterious picture that Jawbreaker's character development is framing. It appears that Megatron had begun to integrate himself into Optimus Prime's good graces and the Autobot cause before Mom Malto lost her leg in the Battle of the Bay. This also indicates that Megatron had begun to form his relationship with Dorothy, as he calls her, before this. Megatron also claims that his choice of a human alt mode was primarily to save the lives of the human soldiers, mostly his friend Dorothy, from the Seekers attacking the naval base, and only secondarily to curry favor with Optimus, which is all well and good, and might be a decent enough redemption story, if his behavior all around the storytelling wasn't framed by Megatron carefully manipulating Jawbreaker and Hashtag. And wasn't that a careful three-layered framing? Megatron's specific words that look awkward to us, his name-dropping Optimus, and the stilted movements are explained by the camera he knows is on him, playing into the overall theme of the show, because that is the theme of the show, of this episode. People behave differently for the camera. Even without the context of the camera being alone with the Terrans, with only Elita 1 and not his usual supervisor Optimus, that might well make Megatron more awkward, as he does not have the same relationship with Elita 1 as he does with Optimus, and he'll be wanting to telegraph his harmless intentions. But this is Megatron of Kaon we're talking about here, and there is every reason to suspect that he is deliberately manipulating these innocent children of his so-called friend Dorothy, so that the children are bonded to him more than Optimus when Megatron's sudden and inevitable betrayal manifests itself. Behavior to the contrary could be that Megatron is just an old, experienced politician with lifetimes of lying publicly behind him. And this right here is good writing. My compliments to the chef. They're setting up a conflict here, and the conflict might exist only in the brains of the audience because we don't know what Megatron's plans are. And speaking of Megatron, then we have his oddly comfortable appearing relationship with Elita 1. So far, in every iteration of Transformers that I've seen, Elita 1 has been a rather extreme warrior, always skilled, always mentally on a warrior's knife edge. Some even had her tipped right over into madness, though in G1 she was usually portrayed as at least equal to Optimus in compassion and forethought. But even in G1, she was running the resistance back on Cybertron, a rebel and a partisan, and her overall attitude and energy seem similar here in Transformers EarthSpark, which is sort of at least a spiritual successor to G1. Yet, she is calm and apparently comfortable with Megatron, even casually friendly. You would never guess that they have all that history of death, war, and destruction kind of floating between them. It's interesting. Then you have this massive plot point just hiding in plain sight under the Malto family farm. In this episode, we get a much better, more clear look at the structure that Nightshade found under the barn. And this time I say with confidence that Nightshade found under the barn. That is clearly some old military level base bunker. There were archaic power generation turbines, human-sized abandoned passageways, and in general a bunch of old decaying human infrastructure that not only could a child not have built, a giant robot would not have thought to build them, even if you ignore the structure's obvious age. So let's take a look at some of the possibilities for that. This is just some random abandoned military bunker, and it is entirely a coincidence that the farm the Maltos chose was built on top of it. This is technically possible, I guess. The east coast of the U.S. is littered with old World War II and Cold War structures like that, and in a Transformers universe there would probably be even more. And every so often you do read a newspaper article about some kids stumbling into one on the family farm. Yet, I can hear a chap named Chekhov cleaning his gun in the background. So, no. Another option is that the bunker is attached to Ghost somehow and the Maltos are being monitored. Possibly. The question becomes then, why hasn't Ghost made a move yet? Perhaps knockoff Steve Jobs has decided that the Malto situation is contained, and she would rather focus on torturing Decepticons in the short time frames Optimus isn't watching her, leaving the Terrans for another better time? Possibly. Or is this Megatron's doing? Perhaps he knew of these underground bunkers and carefully arranged things, so that was the only place his old friend could purchase. With Soundwave helping him, that was... And remember, Soundwave would have been free at that time. It was a possibility. Maybe, though, it would almost make more sense if this was Optimus's role. Optimus did arrange for Dorothy and Malto's job, after all. But in that case, why not tell Bumblebee about the bunker? Why keep it a secret? See, that bunker is bothering me probably more than it should. I mean, it is kind of a trope in kids' cartoons that you find bunkers underground. But there it is. You see, I am hoping that this is a very well-written show. I've seen clues that it could be and clues that it might not be, but I am hoping that the lingering traces of cringe dialogue between Jawbreaker and Megatron in this episode were meant to be as awkward as they were, because there were a few lines, especially from Megatron, but between Megatron and Jawbreaker, where the lines were just cringe. And now that could have been deliberate because they were hamming it up for the camera, again the theme of the episode, and I am hoping that it also signals some deeper plot. I am hoping that Chekhov's subbasement is going to go off before the third act. I've got a lot of hope for this series, so here's hoping. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Am I way too focused on what, after all, is just an odd trope? Leave a comment below telling me what you think. Go check out the links below the videos to get yourself a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.